This could be a feeling I can't help. This could be the season, I just don't know it.
So this is JFDR, JFDR, and we're on europavox.com. And my music, I would say, is kind of experimental, singer-songwriter, a little bit of a dreamy kind of fairy tale music. I grew up in a musical home, and my parents are both musicians, and I had very easy access to music in my childhood, both with my parents playing music and providing a musical education through classical musical training, playing the clarinet. Then when I was growing up, my father was also playing in bands, so he would be taking us, me and my sister, to some of his shows when we were teenagers, and I just remember having a strong feeling early on, like, okay, this is amazing and this is something that I want to do. I feel very fortunate that I had this ability to start young and to practice and to make mistakes and to experiment. I was always writing songs, like I asked my parents for an electric guitar for Christmas, and then I started learning chords and I started writing songs really early on. Then when we started my first band, those were the songs we would play with the band. I kind of had an urge to do something a bit more electronic, so I was playing electronic music with my friends, and there I was more introduced to like Ableton, to production. It took me a few years to sort of believe that I could do it myself, and but once I had a small introduction and a little spark, then I was on the path, and I haven't looked back since.
Heart, diamond shade, pulled out at all its edges. I can tell if I'm in over my head.
It had a big impact on the new album that is coming out now, because it came out sort of during COVID, and it came out right at the start of the pandemic. As a result, it was very difficult to tour, and it was also for me, because at the time I was then living in Australia and the country was closed and the borders were very tight. But the energy of the release was also quite intense because it was during COVID and there was so much information coming out, and the world felt so intense and it felt so big and catastrophic. And then you start questioning, like, what does this matter in the big context, or what does music have to do? But then after a while, after being kind of stunned by this reality, it took me a while to figure that out and answer that question for myself. And I think that this new album is also, in a way, is my kind of processing of this new reality, where we feel more and more on the edge of big change, whether it's like, a disease like COVID or climate change or even like, AI technology, or things just constantly changing so fast. And in a way, this new album was my kind of personal way to heal and to answer those big questions on a small scale. But, for one person, it might be a big thing. I think Iceland has an impact in the sense that, in a very practical way, it's it's a place where you spend a lot of time indoors, but then often with big windows or with a lot of light coming in, so you can kind of enjoy the nature in a different way. And then when you do go outside, which is also so important and so healthy for you, it's like you are always moving, and you're moving your legs and you're moving your body, and you're the wind is like moving you, and the whole thing is like so full of like a charge. As an artist, I think this is quite healthy for you, because you have the space indoors where you create and you work, and you maybe as a musician this is really good because you can work on your computer and you can work on your playing your instruments, and it's quiet. You know, it's a pretty enclosed space, so it's very suitable for music. But then when you need to clean your head, you go outside and you get the fresh air. And then I think on like a very practical level, this is very good as an artist. But then as like you know, more of a subconscious, you know, like we all have this fantasy that you come from Iceland and then obviously the nature impacts your art and so on. And I mean, in a way it's cheesy, but I also think it's probably true that everything you consume and everything you put energy into, it comes back. So, you know, maybe you're always on the phone and then your brain starts to become like this kind of phone brain, or maybe you spend time in nature and then you take in all those irregular patterns and you know, if you are living in a white box and everything is white and straight and the lines are very clean and clear, then that also impacts every way that you think. So, you know, the reason I think that we are moved by nature, and the reason we come back to nature, and the reason we crave it, is probably also because the irregular and the complex textures and the complex sort of images and the waves that affect you. I mean, we are affected by complex waves and frequencies, and I think that really impacts your brain. So, you know, I really believe that it's very beneficial, and especially as an artist, it's very beneficial to spend time in nature and looking at nature and hearing it and feeling it and feeling the complex layers.
One dreamer, one kiss away from life, from a life, from another life, from another life, you know.
So this is a langspiel, but this is one that my friend built when he was just a kid. So this is like also his own interpretation. And the thing about langspiel is that there's not much known exactly about how it was, how it used to be created. And I think there's not much documentation. So a lot of the ways that modern versions of this instrument is completely created, is completely made up. So there's not necessarily there's not necessarily like a right or wrong version to do it. It's very much just the interpretation. So the reason it's interesting is because it has a high sort of metallic frequency, and there's not much else that occupies this frequency. So that's why it was interesting to us. And we had it in the album because it was, just sometimes it was just a tiny little texture that was nice to include. So yeah.